October 20, a date that marks one of Australia's most enduring aviation mysteries. In Melbourne, a 20-year-old pilot named Frederick Valentich prepared for what should have been a routine flight. He filed his plan, a simple trip across the Bass Strait to King Island in his single-engine Cessna. The weather was perfect, visibility was excellent. Frederick wasn't a veteran pilot, he only had about 150 hours in the air, but this was a straightforward route. He planned to land on the island, pick up some passengers, and be back home in a few hours. He took off at 6:19 in the evening, climbing into a clear sky as the sun began to set. Nothing about this flight suggested it would be his last. But just 47 minutes later, everything changed. Frederick Valentich was about to encounter something that defied all explanation. At 7:06, Valentich's voice crackled over the radio to Melbourne Air Traffic Control. His first question was strange. He asked if there was any other known traffic in his area, specifically below 5,000 feet. The controller, Steve Roby, checked his radar. The answer was no. The sky around Valentich was supposed to be empty, but Frederick insisted it wasn't. He reported seeing a large unidentified aircraft just below him. He could make out 4 bright lights. When Roby asked him to identify the type of aircraft, Frederick's response was unsettling. He couldn't. Then, he said something that sent a chill through the control room. "It is not an aircraft." The object, whatever it was, then shot past him at an incredible speed, moving at least 1,000 feet above his Cessna. The air traffic controller, understandably confused, asked Frederick to confirm his altitude. Valentich verified he was steady at 4,500 feet, but his tone was shifting. What began as professional curiosity was turning into alarm. The object, he said, was now approaching him from the east. He described its movements as erratic, almost playful. "It seems to be playing some sort of game," he reported, his voice tinged with a new urgency. It would fly over him, then disappear, only to reappear moments later. The transcript of this final conversation has been pored over by investigators and researchers for decades. You can hear the change in Frederick's voice. He starts out calm, the model of a professional pilot reporting an anomaly. But as the encounter continues, his composure frays, the strain is audible. The mysterious object was now hovering directly above his small plane. Stationary, he gave a new description. It was long and metallic, with a brilliant green light. The controller asked him about his intentions, what he planned to do. Frederick replied that he would proceed to King Island as planned, but just seconds later, his situation worsened. The strange object, he said, was now orbiting above him, and then a new, more immediate problem emerged. His engine, the Cessna's engine, began to rough idle. He reported it was coughing and sputtering, a terrifying development for a pilot over open water. The controller, trying to get a grip on the situation, asked him one last time to identify the aircraft. Frederick's final words have become legendary in the annals of UFO research. His voice was strained, almost breathless. He simply said, "It is not an aircraft." Then, silence. But the radio transmission didn't cut off immediately. For 17 agonizing seconds, the channel remained open. There was no voice, just a sound. A bizarre, metallic, scraping noise. It was described as metal dragging against metal. And then, complete silence. The transmission ended. Melbourne Air Traffic Control tried frantically to re-establish contact. They called his name over and over. There was no response. Frederick Valentich and his Cessna 182 had vanished. A massive search and rescue operation was launched almost immediately. For 4 days, aircraft and boats scoured the Bass Strait, covering more than 1,000 square miles of ocean. They were looking for any sign, any clue. Wreckage, an oil slick, a signal from an emergency beacon, a life raft. They found nothing. Not a single trace of the plane or its pilot was ever recovered. It was as if they had been plucked from the sky. The official investigation by the Department of Transport lasted 2 years. Its final report was remarkable for what it didn't say. The conclusion was simple and haunting. The reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined. They could not explain it. They couldn't prove a crash, and they couldn't simply dismiss Frederick's incredible report. The case was officially closed, and in that vacuum of official explanation, theories began to bloom. The most common skeptical theory is pilot disorientation. Flying over a dark, featureless body of water at night can be confusing. Perhaps Valentich became disoriented, saw the lights of his own plane reflected on the water, or lights from a distant boat, and spiraled into the sea while distracted. But this theory has problems. It doesn't explain the 17 seconds of metallic scraping sounds, and it doesn't explain why, in the relatively shallow waters of the Bass Strait, not a single piece of wreckage was ever found. Another theory, one that pops up in many mysterious disappearances, is that Frederick staged the entire thing. Some reports suggested he had a deep interest in UFOs and perhaps wanted to start a new life, but there was zero evidence to support this. He didn't clear out his bank account. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. His family and friends were devastated and completely blindsided. He had a girlfriend, a stable life, and no apparent reason to simply vanish. It just didn't fit. This leaves the most extraordinary theory, that Frederick Valentich encountered exactly what he described, something unknown, something not from this world. The Bass Strait, often called the Bass Strait Triangle, has a long history of strange lights and unusual aerial phenomena. And on that very night, October 21st, 1978, other people saw things they couldn't explain. Multiple witnesses on the ground, in different locations along the coast, reported seeing unusual lights in the sky at around the same time Frederick disappeared. One of the most compelling pieces of corroborating evidence came from a local farmer. He was so intrigued by a strange, erratically moving green light in the sky that he took a series of photographs. The object in his photos, taken around the time of Valentich's last transmission, appeared to have a metallic glint and was trailing a vapor-like substance. While the photos are not definitive proof, they add another layer of mystery to the case, suggesting Frederick was not the only one who saw something strange that evening. Years later, the Australian government released its complete file on the Valentich case. Over 300 pages of documents, reports, and witness statements, but the files provided no answers. They confirmed the transcript, detailed the fruitless search, and documented the witness sightings. But they offered no conclusion, no definitive explanation for what happened. The case of Frederick Valentich remains officially unsolved. A young pilot, presumed dead, cause unknown. A calm evening flight that turned into a terrifying encounter. A desperate radio call reporting an object that was not an aircraft. 17 seconds of a chilling, unexplained sound. And then, nothing. Frederick Valentich flew into the twilight over the Bass Strait and simply never returned, leaving behind a mystery that continues to fascinate and haunt us to this day. What do you think happened? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring unsolved mysteries, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation.